San Francisco sells itself as progress, tech wealth, freedom, innovation. But that story only works if you ignore what came before. Long before luxury condos and billion-dollar startups, the city's neighborhoods were already fighting for survival. In the Fillmore, part of the Western Addition, the early 20th century brought immigrants, culture, and commerce. After World War II, thousands of black families moved in, transforming it into the Harlem of the West, alive with jazz clubs, black-owned businesses, and community pride. That vibrancy didn't fade naturally. It was dismantled. Mid-century urban renewal bulldozed Victorian homes and black businesses, displacing tens of thousands. What replaced them were sterile housing projects and economic isolation. The Fillmore wasn't renewed, it was fractured. By the 1970s and into the 80s, youth raised among displacement and poverty turned to crews for protection. Projects became sanctuaries and battlegrounds at the same time. Crack cocaine accelerated everything. Respect, turf, and survival became reasons to kill or die. And the violence never fully left. Even decades later, shootings near the Fillmore Heritage Center reminded the city that old wounds still bleed. Across town, Hunters Point lived under a different kind of pressure. Cut off by geography, poisoned by shipyard pollution, and neglected by city leadership, it became a neighborhood boxed in by design. Opportunity was rationed. Poverty was concentrated. Loyalty became law. Crews weren't just gangs. They were families replacing institutions that never showed up. Betrayal in Hunters Point carried a higher price, because trust was everything, and once broken, it often ended in blood. By the mid-1980s, crack cocaine ripped through San Francisco with precision, hitting Sunnydale, Lakeview, Alamany, Army Street, and Valencia Gardens first. Public housing turned into war zones that barely made the news. Sunnydale flooded with money, guns, and fast power. Kids who had never seen opportunity suddenly saw stacks of cash, and the illusion cost them their lives. Turf lines hardened. Beef escalated fast. What once ended in fists ended in funerals. Most shooters didn't expect to live past 25. Lakeview stayed quieter, but not safer. Smaller and overlooked, its violence was calculated and personal. Feuds lasted years. Everyone knew which blocks to avoid, which colors not to wear, which names not to say. Silence wasn't peace, it was exhaustion. Alamany and Army Street became borders between worlds. Crossing them meant crossing into someone else's territory. Valencia Gardens sat at the edge of gentrification, watching wealth approach, but never arrive. Pressure came from both sides. Street violence on one end, displacement on the other. Betrayal became survival. Friends flipped. Crews fractured. The streets didn't just kill people. They turned them against each other. Even North Beach wasn't untouched. Beneath the polished nightlife were older criminal networks, underground economies, and quieter forms of violence tied to organized crime traditions. San Francisco's violence adapted to its surroundings. It always has. By the early 1990s, the city was bleeding. Retaliation spiraled. A rumor could end a life. Funerals outnumbered graduations. Then the tech era arrived, and San Francisco chose reinvention over reckoning. Police pressure and indictments pushed gangs underground, but nothing healed. Hunters Point stayed isolated. Sunnydale stayed underfunded. Lakeview stayed invisible. The Fillmore became unrecognizable. Luxury apartments where community once stood. Violence didn't disappear. It went quiet. By the 2000s, the city did something darker. It rebranded the damage. Hunters Point became undeveloped potential. Sunnydale needed revitalization. Lakeview was quiet. These weren't solutions. They were marketing terms. Rents rose. Surveillance increased. Longtime residents weren't protected. They were pushed out of sight. Violence became justification for control, not investment.